Joining us on Ukraine Today is Johannes Regenbrecht. He is the head of the German Foreign Ministry's task force to Ukraine. Mr. Regenbrecht, thank you very much for joining us in Kiev on Ukraine Today.
Thank you for having me here.
So I wanted to firstly ask you about Germany's support for Ukraine's broad reforms programme. Recently you had meetings with the chief of police, and you said they went very well, and Germany has donated 136 million euros recently. So what is Germany trying to do in Ukraine? What's the whole aim of this support?
First, I think it is key Ukraine needs long-term support because we know that the stabilization of Ukraine's economy is the make it or break it issue. For Ukraine to be sustainable, to be strong, to be resistant, to be resilient, Ukraine needs to stabilize, and Ukraine needs thorough reforms. We talk about nothing less than its transformation after independence and a real genuine effort of transformation.
Do you think there is a genuine effort being made now? Because critics would say that actually, for example, with the police, you have the new police force and there are reforms slowly going on, perhaps not quite as quick as some people expected after the Euromaidan revolution, but at the moment in Ukraine there's no functioning judiciary. So surely, is that the elephant in the room?
Sure. First, we trust the government, we trust the President Poroshenko, we trust Prime Minister Yatsenyuk. We provide them with full support and full trust because now it's, as I said, the make it or break it moment. When it comes to the police, you're right. Good first steps have been taken with the traffic police. It is symbolic. It is important. People see it in the streets. The behavior changed, the approach changed. It's a police for the people. But you're right. We need a functioning judiciary. We need a functioning prosecutor's office. We need a functioning fight against corruption, because all this is needed for the new police to be able to have a good working environment. And as you mentioned, I just had a very good meeting with Mrs. Tikhanovitsa, the new chief of police, an impressive woman at the head of the 130,000 police force in Ukraine. And she herself made that point. She needs that framework, the judiciary. Currently, the constitutional reform is being discussed in Rada, and all this is needed for having this framework.
How are you going to make sure, though, that these laws which are passed in the Ukrainian parliament, the Rada, are actually enforced? It's one thing passing the laws. I mean, you could pass them all day, but actually what happens in real life is different. So how are you going to assess this?
The Ukraine's parliament is, I think, a world champion in passing legislation.
Well, I'm not sure about that, though. I mean, recently it took 5-6 times to pass at least one bill, a simple bill.
But normally the Rada passes lots of bills on the one side, but implementation is the other side of the page of the medal. So I think implementation needs to be reinforced and needs to be
How are you going to do this, though?
I think key is the role of the civil society. Key is the role of the parliament. For that, the parliament adopted a law on party financing. Political parties need to become independent from oligarchs. The influence of oligarchs on politics needs to be cut back. In that, I really do not see a lot of progress, unfortunately, because this is the key point. And I think the destiny and the fate of Ukraine will be decided.
How much influence do you think the German government actually has over Ukrainian politics? I mean, you said yourself that you trust Poroshenko, you said that you trust Yatsenyuk, but at the same time, there's in the past been corruption allegations against them. So I wanted to ask really, this trust, how much trust do you really have in the government?
I think, first of all, we see genuine efforts of both to take the country forward. We see, secondly, the external threat under which Ukraine is. Thirdly, we see that they themselves say, even though the country is at conflict, this is no excuse for not tackling reforms. I think that's the right approach. Certainly from outside, we are very realistic. You cannot do a lot. You can induce and you can support change, but you cannot induce or cause it yourself.
So you can't force
this
it through.
This must come from within the society, civil society, and but we mostly trust the civil society in Ukraine.
More than the government?
I wouldn't qualify it.
No.
We work with Ukraine, with the government, and with the civil society. What we have been doing in the past, we have been opening a new program 1 year ago for the civil society in Ukraine. We invest a lot of money to invite them to Germany, to conduct programs, seminars, meetings on all levels to strengthen their capacity and their possibilities to work.
Yes. I wanted to move on as well and talk about the Minsk agreement. There was a very interesting quote in Deutsche Welle recently. It was from the Germany's special representative to the OSCE East chairmanship next year. His name is Dr. Gernot Erler. And he said that currently Crimea is not on the issue, and he appeared to lay blame at Ukrainian nationalists and the government for fueling a more recent conflict with Russia. Is that an opinion shared in Berlin?
I would say, first of all, the Minsk process focuses on eastern Ukraine. Crimea, the German government, the German people, we stand by our clear condemnation of the illegal annexation of Crimea by Russia.
But what are you going to do about it, though?
We have a fully fledged sanction regime on Crimea, which is separate from the sanctions, the sectoral sanctions the European Union and the international community imposed when it comes to eastern Ukraine. So we stand by the sanctions on Crimea, on the international condemnation, and Chancellor Merkel herself said a couple of times that she herself will never forget about Crimea. And by the way, we remain committed and active on cases of Mr. Sentsov and Mr. Kolchenko, whose proceedings in Russia we fully condemn because this does not fulfill and is not in line with the rule of law.
But this German support, though, do you think it's broad? Because I read a few days ago in a German publication that German business has actually lost a third of its revenue, partly down to Russia's economic situation, but partly down to the sanctions. So actually, in Berlin, is there broad support? What about businesses? Do you think they support your view?
No, I think, first of all, most of the business opportunities and the shrinking market in Russia is due to the overall economic situation, the macroeconomic situation, due to the low prices for oil and for gas. This has something to do also with the lost opportunities in Russia of economic transformation and reform. We've extended so many times the economic partnership for Russia. We called it modernization partnership in the past. And this is something that has to be done. So these are deficiencies of reform within Russia. When it comes to sanctions, the German economy is solidaric. We know the primacy of politics here. We stand by the side of Ukraine because we know that the basis of the European security order was challenged by Russia.
Well, that's true, but at the same time, you have the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which, actually bypasses Ukraine. It goes from Russia underneath the Baltic Sea straight to Germany. So you have Germany and Russia working together here, bypassing Ukraine, but at the same time, you say you support Ukraine.
We work with Russia economically. We conduct a dialogue. It would be a wrong and mistaken policy to isolate the country. The security of Ukraine will depend on the behavior of Russia. So it's key to maintain the dialogue while maintaining sanctions and pressure on Russia. When it comes to Nord Stream, this is being run by German and by other international companies.
It's also German, though. German has a big say in this.
Exactly, there's a German buy-in, but it's not governmental. It is the private sector who come to their decisions independently from the government, as the Ukrainian business and oligarchs do. So I think this is legitimate. At the same time, we very much focus on the European energy market. I think it is key to fully integrate Ukraine into the European energy market and to create a market-based gas market. This, within the time, including with reverse flows, with more interconnectors, etc., will create a platform which is making Ukraine more and more independent and will strengthen Ukraine's independence.
I know we're very short of time, so I just have one final question for you. Going back to the Minsk agreement, it's, I don't know how well you know it, but it's Article 5 that says that that will pardon and amnesty should be given to those who who should be punished from Donetsk and Luhansk for being involved in this, and Germany is a signatory of this Minsk agreement. But at the same time...
No, we are not. We are signatory of a declaration of support of Minsk.
Or that you support it, at least.
But the Minsk package of measures was signed by the members of the trilateral contact group and the representatives of certain areas of the Donetsk and Lugansk regions.
But at the same time, though, Germany is a signature of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. So does Germany support giving these people amnesty or not amnesty?
This is a process and an issue that is being dealt with in the political working group under the roof of the trilateral contact group, and the procedure of issues such as amnesty is to be dealt with according to international standards in conflict and post-conflict situations. So it's not a question of giving these people amnesty for what they have been doing. There are lots of exceptions. It must be done case by case, and rules have to be worked out by the sides involved in the conflict. So it's a very differentiated approach that has to be taken according to and on the basis of international rules.
Okay, Johannes Regenbrecht, thank you very much for joining us on Ukraine Today.
Thank you very much.
Now, back to the news.